You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay, and it's our pleasure for the first time this year to have in the studio the wonderful Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you going, Lou?
I am really well, Ken.
Good to see you. Now, before we came to where we're just curing the ills of the world.
Yes, well, somebody's got to.
That's right, and we agreed that we live in a paradise.
Yes, we do.
Don't we ever?
Nowhere else to be.
No, and you've been flat out like a lizard drinking, and you're sort of back to reality now. You're back to work, and you've got 3 more fabulous books for us. And the first one is called The Last Good Man, and all the men out there saying, that's me.
Yeah, well, maybe, or maybe not. This is by Thomas McMullen, and it is a novel, and this is my advanced reading copy, so it looks a bit scruffy, but that's the real cover on the back.
Oh, right, yes.
And it's one of those dystopian novels where you're not quite sure what's cracked off, but it's in England, and London's burning, as the nursery rhyme would tell us. So something's happened, there's a lot of poverty, people are working in the factories and setting fire to things and rioting, and out in the countryside there are rumours that people have got little societies going on. So Duncan Peck, he had a cousin who he grew up with, very close with, and the cousin beggared off at some point 4 years ago, and then he's had a letter from the cousin saying, I'm in Dartmoor, this beautiful idyllic village, come and be with me, come and visit. And so he makes his way on foot, because there's no vehicles or anything like that, on foot out through the moors and the marshes to Dartmoor, and he gets there safely. But he sees an odd thing along the way, and it makes him hold back from identifying himself to his cousin. He sees these people chasing a man into the marsh, and his cousin's one of them and appears to be in charge of it. And he's like, oh, that's interesting, and my cousin seems a bit different now. So he gets to this village, and it's not like London. It's got a butcher and a baker and a school, and the children appear happy, but then there's this odd big wall that doesn't appear to be sort of related to anything in the village, but people write their notices on it, my cat's missing, or violin lessons with whoever. But then there are more insidious things that, the butcher's been skimming a bit off the meat, or so-and-so's sleeping with so-and-so's husband.
Oh, right, wow.
Yeah, and he's like, well, what's that all about? That's a bit weird. And he gets into the village, and his cousin appears to be the lawman. And so there's this utopian, wonderful place. London's burning, but they're all right, and they've got their meat, and they've got their veggies, and the kids go to school. But if you commit some kind of misdemeanour and 2 or 3 people write your name on the wall, then something will happen to you.
They chase you into the marsh.
Or, for minor misdemeanours, people are like wandering about with furniture strapped to their back as a punishment. So it's all gone a little bit slightly feral. This sort of, oh yeah, well that's lovely, and then this really concerning thing. And the wall made me think of social media and how someone can put something up and then all of a sudden there's outrage.
Yes, indeed.
And there's offence, and there's people being condemned. And so it's kind of like a modern way of looking at it. It's a very strange thing, but lots of parallels to modernity.
And is the wall like just a big notice board, or is there something behind the wall?
No, the wall is just the wall, and that's what it's for, but it's massive, and it dominates everything, really.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so it's about Duncan then and how he fits into it, and what his cousin's doing, and what the woman next door's doing, and what her husband's doing, and there's the insidiousness of the gossip in the village as well, and how you can try and create a utopian society, but there's got to be some law and order, but then how do you do that?
Yeah, and who ends up being the good man, or is that the spoiler?
Well, that's the thing, you see. It's, are you a good man?
Yes.
And how do you define what's good and what's wrong, and whose morality is this? So that's the whole tenet of it, really.
Sounds fascinating.
Absolutely.
So that's the advanced copy. So when is the real copy coming out?
It's out now.
It's out now. Yeah.
I just, I've put my coffee mug on that, clearly.
Yes, you have. I can see that. And the next one is called The Strays of Paris. I immediately thought of cats and dogs, but tell us about The Strays of Paris.
The cats are not the good guys in this, funnily enough. So this is a novel, a grown-up novel by Jane Smiley. And in this one, we have a beautiful racehorse called Paris. And she's a filly still, and she's just won this race. And she's all high and mighty about it. And her groom accidentally leaves her stable thing, horse box. I'm not very good at horsey terminology. Horse box, door ajar. And she's a curious filly, and she noses it open, and she thinks, oh, well, there's the lights of the city. I'm just going to beg her off over there. And she trots into Paris, and she's wandering around, noodling around. And then it's about then the search for the horse, but also she becomes this mythical creature around Paris. She meets a dog called Frida, whose owner was a homeless guy, and he's just died, so Frida's at a loss as what to do. And they kind of warily skirt one another and become friends. They become friends also with a raven who has a lot to say, as you can imagine. And then they meet a little boy. I'm trying to remember his name. He's got a lovely name, Etienne, and he lives with his great-grandmother who is about to turn 100, and so he's been quite isolated because it's just him and his great-grandmother. All the other family members have died in tragic circumstances. So what it becomes then is the boy and the horse and the raven, and then there's a rat turns up at some point because he's nibbling all the crappy bits in the house where Etienne lives, and how they all come together in this very unlikely friendship. You know, like the French liberté, égalité, fraternité. It almost reminds me of that. You know, well, so they're looking for, merci, they're looking for their personal freedoms because Etienne doesn't want to go to school. He doesn't want his great grandmother to die. You know, all that kind of thing. But what does Paris want to do? Does she want to go and be this contained racehorse, or does she want to pursue her curiosity? Yeah. So it was just this beautiful tale of friendship, and it's from the viewpoint of the little boy but also from the animals as well, and there's nothing quite like the viewpoint of an animal to shed light on human behaviours.
Sort of, it's a bit like Animal Farm meets someone else,
but it's quite delightful. It's not disturbing in the least. So it's a lovely book, and it's how they accidentally bring other people together as well.
Who's it going to appeal to?
I think just people that are in need of something delightful, not something with murders or traumas, or, you know, they just want something that's going to make them go, oh yeah, this is how life can be.
Light and easy.
Yeah.
Unlike The Last Good Man.
Yeah, that was a bit more...
Yeah.
They're thought-provoking in their own ways.
Yeah, good word, yeah. And the last book, and I'm looking forward to seeing him live on stage as you are, Bill Bailey's Remarkable Guide to Happiness. How does he define happiness, I wonder?
Well, that's it, and that's the whole point of it, I think. He's gone through his life and thought about the things that make him happy. Can you just think of one thing that makes you happy?
Oh, my grandkids.
Yeah, there you go. So it's just hanging out with the grandkids.
That's right.
That kind of thing. Or, you know, going for a walk up the peak or whatever it is. So Bill Bailey, he actually starts off... There are some illustrations in here by Bill Bailey, and they're quite lovely, scratchy little drawings. And then he's got... I don't know if it's his mate or who it is. Joe McGee has done some graphic illustrations as well. And so he's just picked things like Crazy Golf. And he just relates how he and his son and his dad, so like 3 generations of Bailey blokes, just take great delight in Crazy Golf.
Crazy Golf.
Yeah. And because it's Bill Bailey, and he's so clever, and he's so erudite, and has such a wonderful way of looking at the world, it's funny and it's beautiful. And wild swimming, he talked about good clear out as well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Music, because of course he is the most amazing musician. What's the one? Paddleboarding, and he does talk about, just paddleboarding down the, I don't know if it's the Thames, probably it is the Thames. And you think, woof, you know. Trees, confronting your fears. Dogs, of course, that's good. And being someone to rely on, being in nature, and just all sorts of absolutely beautiful things.
Who would think to write a book about everyday stuff and write it well and not make a killing out of it, probably make a killing out of it as well? What a talent. Yeah,
he is a talent, and I think that's it. And like you, I'm really looking forward to seeing him when he comes over. And I think it's just timely at the moment when the world is in such chaos and turmoil that we have things, right, okay, well, what actually does make me happy?
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't watch the news so much.
I go along with that. What makes you happy?
Well, it is things like, you know, having my family home, having my children home. That's just been amazing. We play dumb board games with our best friends. I love going up the peak. It's just one of the great happy places in the world, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
And it is going back to those simple things of maybe I'll just sit in my garden and look at the things that my son has planted, and that makes me happy.
Good on you. And as always, if we want any of these fabulous books, where do we get them?
Oh, Wardini Books, please. That would be lovely.
Or we can get them online from your place.
You can, Go to wardinibooks.co.nz.
Good on you, Lou. As was my pleasure. You look after yourself. Talk to the same time, same place next week.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ken.